At first glance, flipping 17 seats out of 435 doesn't seem all that hard. That's how many seats the Democrats need to gain to retake control of the House next year. But with nearly 400 of those seats essentially locked in for their respective parties, that task becomes a whole lot tougher. Right now, Republicans hold a 234 to 201 seat majority, and as we said, if Democrats can gain an additional 17 seats, do the math, they go up 218 to 217. But that looks like an uphill climb right now. 17 seats would be more than double the 8 they picked up during President Obama's successful re-election last November. What's more, redistricting has limited the number of competitive seats around the country to a relative handful. According to the Cook Political Report, my former employer, just 31 seats, less than 8% of the total House are in play. The Rothenberg Political Report says there are just 29. In fact, Stu Rothenberg points out that, quote, with the House playing field so narrow and Democrats having to defend a large handful of Senate seats that could prove difficult to hold, the net change in the Senate could be larger than the net change in the House. If that happens, it would be only the third time in the past 150 years it had happened. With me now to talk about it, Maryland Democrat Congresswoman Donna Edwards, chair of the DCCC's Recruitment Committee, and North Carolina Republican Congressman Patrick McHenry, vice chair of the NRCC's recruitment effort. Now, I want to start not on this, but on immigration, just because it's so in the news. And Congressman, I want to start with you. We heard Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, John McCain, all Republicans saying we urge the House to act. We need the House to act. We as a party need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Are you listening?
We are, and in fact, Speaker Boehner, Leader Cantor, Whip McCarthy put out a joint statement about a month ago saying that the House will act as the House will on individual pieces of immigration reform, and we'll do so before we adjourn in August. And in fact, we have a conference meeting planned for the week we come back, the week after July 4th. We're going to take on immigration, but in a way that comports with our members' needs and wishes and desires.
And Congressman, how much are Democrats ready to play ball on a House plan that we believe, based on what we know now, will not be certainly not a facsimile, but not that similar to the Senate plan? Are House Democrats going to work with House Republicans to find some common ground, as we saw to a certain extent going on in the Senate?
I think that all depends on what House Republicans really put on the table. I mean, if it's a bill that is penalty-ridden, that challenges the ability to both protect our borders, secure our borders, making sure that we protect workers in this country, and that we provide a legitimate pathway to citizenship, that's kind of one thing. I think the Senate has actually done that. I don't understand, for example, why the House can't simply bring the Senate bill up for a vote. It passed with a strong majority in the Senate. It should be able to pass with a strong majority in the House.
Look, gosh knows we're going to be talking more about this, so I want to move to the politics, not of immigration, but of 2014, because I want to spend some time with that. Both of you are charged with recruiting candidates for your respective sides. Let's look at where these targets are, because let's put names and faces on these folks. Let's start with, this is a map of Republican targets. Now, these are districts that Democrats currently hold that a Republican presidential candidate has won in the last 3 election cycles. Now, we're not going to go through all of these, Congressman McHenry, though, to be honest, I'm a nerd enough that I would like to. But I want to pick one, because Jim Matheson in Utah. This district is incredibly Republican. It was redrawn after 2010 to get him. Republicans nominated Mia Love, an African-American mayor of Saratoga Springs, Utah. She lost that race. Now, she's looking at running again. If Jim Matheson hasn't lost yet, why does he lose now?
Barack Obama. The best effort we have for candidate recruiting is this president and this president's policies. They've seen what a liberal president will do, and how that will matter in a midterm is that Jim Matheson has to defend the president of his party. And the fact is that
Did he not have to do that in 2012? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure, he did, but this is a first-time candidate. She was a local mayor. She learned a lot of lessons. She has an enhanced and better team. She announced at the state convention to great reviews, and she's got a great opportunity here when she loses by less than 1,000 votes. You add that with David Rouser in North Carolina running again against Mike McIntyre, who lost by 654 votes. Those are two great recruits that we are touting, very happy that they're running. They learned some important lessons, and in a presidential midterm, the 6-year itch, it's going to really benefit them, and
Chris,
especially if they bring up immigration.
Let me, if I can, because we've had our wonderful graphics team build these great Democratic targets graphic. Let me show you this, Congresswoman. Thank you for your patience. Now, this is DCCC potential targets. These are districts held by Republicans that President Obama won. Again, I sort of come back. I feel like we've gone over this ground many times in the past. I've spent a lot of time with this. Dave Reichert in Washington. What gives you belief, Congresswoman, that some of these places, same question I asked the Congressman McHenry, that some of these places that have elected, yes, Dave Reichert's district in and around Seattle is a district that supports President Obama, but it's also voted for Dave Reichert multiple times. Why now does he lose in the second term, midterm of a Democratic president?
The strength of the recruits and the strength of their stories. I mean, I think that that's what you see. I mean, we're recruiting candidates who really do have strong stories themselves. They're problem solvers. They're not actually mired in, partisan politics, and that's what you're going to see around the country. And there are 17 districts that were won by President Obama that are held by Republicans. Those are prime targets. And I have to say to my colleague, the reality is that in those two districts, Jim Matheson runs independently. He runs the strength of his district. He works his district. And I don't think anybody would say that he's the top ally of the president. He runs his district. He wins his district as a Democrat, and he's going to do it again.
Let me ask you a broader question. I did a little math. Now, I was no math major in college. That's why I do this. 17 seats that Barack Obama won held by Republicans, 7 seats that the last 3 Republican presidents have won held by Democrats. That adds up to 24. There are 435 seats in the House. Redistricting largely over the last 2 decades has protected incumbents. This is true for both of your parties that have controlled lines in states and drawn districts that protect both parties. Is that a good or a bad thing for democracy, for representation, and for getting things done in the House, Congressman? I'll ask you both, but I'll start with you, Congressman McHenry.
Well, redistricting is not a new phenomenon. And so to say that suddenly this becomes a problem is really just a matter of partisan perspective.
But has it gone too far in the, and I say this for both parties, in the sort of protecting of incumbents to the detriment of competitiveness nationally?
Well, actually, if you see states that redraw lines, in order to have more Republican districts, you have to have less Republican districts in North Carolina, for instance, likewise in Illinois. And so if you're a Republican in Illinois, you say redistricting is a bad thing because Democrats drew the line. Likewise in North Carolina, Democrats said it was an awful thing because Republicans drew the lines for the first time.
It's all
I'm going to say something different, because I do think that we have a real challenge in this country to make sure that we really do have districts that represent the interests of people there. And I am not entirely happy with the way that these lines have been drawn, because I think it's about citizens and about voters, and so I think there's a lot that we could do there. But this is the map that we have, and it's the map that we're going to run.
Let me say, as a political reporter who covers campaigns, I urge us to draw more competitive congressional district lines.
I bet you do.
Congresswoman Donna Anderson, Maryland, Congressman Patrick McHenry from North Carolina. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And more for who the game-changing recruits are and whether they're actually going to run, check out Jessica Taylor's latest report on our website, rundown.msnbc.com. As a reminder, we're keeping our eyes on the Florida courtroom where the